Conservatives are continuing to spread all sorts of insane, baseless conspiracy theories and make jokes about the violent attack against Paul Pelosi. Now, Adam Kinzinger, who is a Republican politician that I don't really have much in common with or agree with, has said some stuff in regard to the current MAGA Trump era that makes a lot of sense. He's been one of the very few Republican lawmakers who's been willing to speak out against Trump and the cult that follows him. But what I really appreciated is what he had to say in the next video. So let's take a quick look at that.
The cruelty is just, I guess you can raise money on the cruelty and it's hilarious now. And Trump Jr. tweeting underwear and a hammer. And of course, these conspiracies now that are out there that this was actually just a love tryst gone wrong. Look, this is why we have to call this out. It's ludicrous. What I'd like to see is just some semblance of humanity. I'd like to see every Republican candidate and elected official say that you condemn this attack. That's really basic. Just say you condemn the attack. When Elon deleted his tweet, which was an insane tweet, everybady's like, oh, you're acquiescing to the left-wing mob. I want to make it clear too. By the way, Liz and I are not courageous. There's no strength in this. We're just surrounded by cowards. And then complete contrast to cowardism, it looks like courage when it's just your bare duty.
I really appreciated that last part. That is the most accurate thing he has said ever. I mean, he said other accurate things, but I really appreciated that because I'm so tired of everyone in corporate media. I'm tired of Democratic politicians and officials refer to people like Liz Cheney, Mike Pence, Adam Kinzinger as courageous, as heroes. They're just doing the bare minimum. The fact that doing the bare minimum in presenting yourself as a decent human being is such a big deal at this point shows you how low the bar is for Republican politicians. Anyway, I loved what he said there at the end especially. But anyway, before we get to some updates on DePape, the man who assaulted Paul Pelosi with a hammer and everything that we're now learning about the flawed security surrounding the situation. I wanted to get your thoughts, John.
Sure, yeah, calling it courageous or heroic definitely is too far. I mean, it's something when you know that they know by doing it, that's it for them. That's something, because we know politicians love staying in power. They will do anything, doom people to suffering and economic ruin to stay in power. So doing something that you know is gonna send you out of power, it's not heroic, you're not Captain America, but it's something.
Yeah.
Granted, these people are all rich, so they're gonna be perfectly fine. It ain't like, it ain't like a regular person losing their job over principle.
They're gonna work as lobbyists.
Exactly,
they'll be fine.
Yeah, they'll be perfectly fine. Yeah. So I'm not that interested in them. This is maybe getting into the area of being like pedantic or something like that and acknowledging that I've been referring to these things people have said about Paul Pelosi as conspiracy theories, but like language isn't the most important thing. But doesn't it almost seem like we should stop calling them that? Because isn't the idea with a conspiracy theory that the person spreading it is trying to explain something and making crazy mistakes along the way? They're making logical leaps and they're assuming things that don't actually work out if you were to think about them, but they're trying to explain something. These people are not trying to explain what happened. They don't care what happened. They're not interested in it.
No, they care what happened. They
don't think that there was a, well, sure, exactly. But the conspiracy theory is not their attempt to explain it. They don't think maybe it was a gay prostitute, maybe it wasn't. Well, where was the glass shattered this way rather than that? What does that mean? They're not Pepe Silving this. They don't care about any of that stuff. It's just a distraction. They like that he was attacked with a hammer.
100%. Remember when there were protesters outside the homes of Supreme Court justices? They didn't assault anyone. They were simply voicing their outrage through their demonstration after the Supreme Court, for the first time in history, decided to reverse rights that were granted to the people by the Supreme Court originally. Right? Reproductive rights when they reversed Roe v. Wade. So no one got hurt. No one was hit over the head with a hammer. No one had to get surgery thanks to a skull fracture that was caused by an assault. But I recall Republican politicians losing their minds over those demonstrations.
Yep.
Over those demonstrations.
They hated the speech.
Exactly. But when it comes to Paul Pelosi, by the way, like what I have a really difficult time understanding is like the lack of humanity in people today, right? Because how depraved have we become? How sad has this country become? Where you see your political opponent get harmed physically in that way, and you celebrate it or you provide cover for it. I mean, seeing people who I disagree with politically have their lives destroyed from anything, like a hurricane in Florida, for instance. I don't celebrate that. I find that devastating, right? Because at the end of the day, they're human beings and we should look out for each other. We should see each other as fellow Americans. Again, even if we have deep disagreements politically. But no, we're so far removed from that culture now. Where like you see some portion of the country rooting for real physical harm against their political opponents. They love it.
So why was there the whole QAnon thing? Why did that, they spend years convincing people of all this? I would argue to generate this. How do you get people to be so, I forget exactly what word you use, but to see people, like to dehumanize your political opponents? QAnon's a great way to do that. You spend multiple years convincing millions of gullible Americans that everyone who disagrees with them literally consumes the flesh of children, rapes them too, and then eats their brain. You get millions of people to believe that, and you can probably get them to think it's fine that an 82-year-old man's skull is crushed in. And you can get them to genuinely lust for the blood of their opponents. That's the whole point of all of these conspiracy theories. The right does not want to engage in policy arguments with us.
No, they don't.
They don't want it to be about, well, what exactly is the right top marginal tax rate? They don't want their base to be watching it like, well, he made a good point, but then he cited an interesting study. No, they want their base to look at Democrats and see satanic baby eaters. And they've succeeded in that.
Can we just acknowledge that one man in his 70s, who's very unlikely to be around for very long, because just based on his age, is doing such a great job in tearing the entire country apart, right? So when he's long gone, I don't know what the state of America will be. But he's not gonna, but he doesn't have to worry about suffering the consequences of what he's doing to this country in inciting the violence that he's inciting, in encouraging the kind of disgusting, vicious rhetoric that we see in conservative media, online among prominent conservative voices. Like they just can't get enough. Anyway, so let's get to DePape. What do we know about him? Well, first off, what he himself has told the authorities after being arrested for cracking Paul Pelosi's skull indicates that the conspiracy theories are untrue, okay? Because prosecutors allege that DePape, who's 42, told police that he was on a suicide mission after he broke into the townhouse in the early morning hours. It was a townhouse? It looked like a freaking mansion. But anyway, townhouse in the early morning hours Friday and struck 82-year-old Paul Pelosi in the head with a hammer, knocking him unconscious for 3 minutes. Court documents show that DePape allegedly awoke Pelosi by standing over his bedside and prevented him from escaping, all while demanding to know the whereabouts of the House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi.
Terrifying.
He was also carrying a large hammer with several zip ties. He said, quote, "I'm sick of the insane effing level of lies coming out of Washington, D.C. Yeah, same. I don't want to go around assaulting people over it. Anyway, he continues to say, "I came here to have a little chat with his wife," DePape told officers and medics at the scene, according to the Tuesday filing. And he says that Paul really wasn't his target. Quote, "I didn't really want to hurt him. But this was a suicide mission. I'm not going to stand here and do nothing, even if it cost me my life. Hurting him was not my goal. I told him before I attacked him that he's escalating things and I will go through him if I have to." So the real question here is, how exactly did he get to Paul Pelosi? I mean, we're talking about a fabulously wealthy guy who has unlimited resources. His wife has unlimited resources. Like, she also has a security detail who's with her, that's with her 24/7. But since she had left San Francisco to go back to DC, the security detail went with her. But there are some security measures at the Pelosi household. The only problem is no one was really checking the cameras at the time. So,
but even if they were checking the cameras, a person can bust in a window and get into your house, and sure, people might be dispatched to get to you.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that the person can't get to your bedside in a minute.
Right, and to be fair, the authorities were on the scene within 3 minutes. Paul Pelosi was charging his phone in the bathroom, and so he told DePape that he needs to use the restroom. He goes in there, he calls 911. Luckily, that all worked out, and cops showed up within 3 minutes and were able to arrest DePape. But it wasn't before DePape hit him over the head with a hammer. But anyway, this is the political climate we're living in. Right, and it's just gross, right? It's gross, especially because we're supposed to support freedom of expression, freedom of speech. I mean, the people who like to present themselves as the free speech absolutists tend to be on the right. But if you happen to be a political opponent of theirs, not only will they provide cover for someone who might want to bash you over the head with a hammer, potentially murdering you, they might even go further than that, like, engage in rhetoric that incites said violence. And so you can disagree politically with people, you can do critiques as we have of Nancy Pelosi on this show, but you can do it in a way that doesn't incite people who might be unstable to carry out acts of violence that could get people killed. It's not that hard, but that's just not the political era we're living in, I guess.